Hey everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new. So today is the first time I've actually done a full-on scripted video, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Before we start, please, if you enjoy the video at any point, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, just so we know to make these types of videos again, if you guys enjoy it. Okay, so today we're talking about Batman Arkham Asylum. This game came out 12 years ago and it's still being played a lot. So in today's video we're going to be discussing why that is, and at the same time hopefully I will convince you to play this game 12 years later. So in today's video we're going to be splitting the video up into 4 different sections. So those sections are going to be atmosphere, characters, gameplay, and the extra content, what you can do outside of the story of the game. So I feel like it's best to start off with the one that the game is the most sort of famous for, and that's the atmosphere. So the game has a lot of atmosphere. It ranges from like a gothic sort of mansion to, you know, dark creepy hallways in the penitentiary. It's just a really sort of creepy game. I think that that's the thing. This game is it's what this game does the best in the entire series. I don't think any of the games after it sort of captured what this game did in terms of atmosphere. You know, you sort of feel really claustrophobic. You feel like if you get stuck in this game, you're kind of fucked. You can't really do anything. And that's what makes this game a lot more challenging, especially because of the combat not being perfected yet. So it just makes this game a lot harder to play, but it also feels a lot more rewarding when you actually win, or when you take out a group of guys. But the atmosphere, for sure, is definitely the thing that I would sort of sell this game on. I think this game's atmosphere is definitely the best part about it. As I said, it ranges from, you know, a penitentiary to a mansion to the botanical gardens, which, even though the botanical gardens aren't really creepy, they kind of give off just where they are. Because you have to remember, you're not in Gotham, you're like in a separate island. Like, you're separated off from Gotham City, so that definitely doesn't help that you're on a tiny island with a lot of sort of lunatics, I guess. So I guess you have to kind of think like, you have to think about your strategies in this game, because as I said before, you're screwed like if you make a wrong decision. And I think that that's cool because it's a game with like high reward, but also you have to take a lot of risks. But overall, I think the atmosphere definitely should sell you on this game alone, simply because you can go so many different places on this one tiny island. But let's just move on to the next bit. So the next bit is the characters. So if you're a fan of Batman, you probably would have heard of all the characters that are in this game. There's none that are sort of obscure, but there's a lot of ones that a lot of people are aware of. So, you know, you have Poison Ivy, you have Killer Croc, you have Scarecrow, obviously you have Joker, you have Harley Quinn, and Bane. You have a lot of sort of classic characters that a lot of people are aware of. And in this game, the boss fights are reasonable. You don't really have a boss fight. You don't have a boss fight against some of them, but most of the characters I just listed, you do. Some of the boss fights are good, some of them aren't particularly great, but I think that the game overall with characters, it's actually pretty good, because, you know, you have a sort of wide variety of characters, and that's something that I think is pretty cool. The game also has a lot of character in that it shows the comic book inspiration. The game actually, based on the characters' designs, which will be showing up on screen right now, they have a lot of they look very cartoony. You can sort of tell where they got their inspiration, but I think that that's kind of cool. You know, you have a lot of classic looking characters like Batman and Joker look like, you can tell that Rocksteady put their own sort of take on it, but they still look sort of refreshing, they still look new and original, but you can also see where the inspiration came from. So next up, this is going to be the longest segment, and that is the gameplay. So gameplay in this game is sort of different to the rest of the series, because the 3 things that it's split up into in the other games are generally traversal, combat, and predator. However, in this game, when you're as I said before, when you're in such a tight space, there really isn't much traversal to be done. You're sort of just gliding around like a tiny island, and if not, you're just inside. So the three things that it's split up into in this game for me would be puzzles, combat, and predator. So we'll talk about puzzles first. So puzzles are generally just using your cryptographic sequencer to open up doors, or going around the map and trying to find Riddler trophies, stuff like that. Puzzles is definitely the one I have the least to say about, because there's not really a ton to say. It's pretty simple. You just use the gadgets that you have to try and find things across the map, to open doors and just find Riddler trophies. Next up is the Predator. So Predator is basically, it's probably the one that you'll use. It's probably the funnest one in my opinion. Predator is generally when you have like a room full of armed people, and there might be hostages, maybe not, and you have to sort of get around the map and try and take out the guards, or take out Joker's henchmen, or whoever you're after. And it can be quite challenging because they actually start adding new things to the map. They will, towards the end of the game, they will start to put like explosives on gargoyles, so you can't grapple up to them, and if you go on them, obviously they'll explode, and if you don't get off them in time, it'll fuck you up. But even if you do use it at all, but you get away, it'll blow up and they'll know that you're there. So it's quite a cool sort of concept that they throw in there. And they also start to throw in different enemy types as well, which I'll talk about a bit more in the combat section. But for Predator overall, I think Predator is really, really cool, especially with the new with the vision that you have. You can get detective vision, and that's basically, it's pretty cool. It lets you see characters in like a sort of skeleton form, so you can only see their bones, and you can tell if they're knocked out or if they're still good, like they're still fighting. You can also tell if someone's actually like, you can see their form, like if they're, or sorry, their state. You can see if they're scared, if they're fine. You can also tell if they're armed or unarmed. If they're sort of blue, if they've like a blue aura, then they're unarmed. But if they have a red aura, you can see that they're holding a gun and they're armed. So you need to take a more careful approach. But overall, detective mode, or detective vision, whatever you want to call it, is extremely cool, and it definitely helps you clear out the rooms. But I feel like the game does rely too much on it, because you don't get to do a ton of sort of detective work, which I probably should have included in the puzzles. But you do a bit of detective work, but you don't really do a ton. You do a bit at the start, and then not really any at the end. I mean, I could be misremembering, but I have just played through the game, and there wasn't a ton of detective work when it comes to actually like things that aren't using the cryptographic sequencer, which isn't really detective work. But Predator is still a really, really cool thing, and it's definitely probably the funnest thing in the game. It definitely tests your skills. But the next thing I'm talking about, which is combat, definitely involves some skill as well. So the combat in this game definitely inspired a lot of other games. I believe like Assassin's Creed, and Shadow of War, I'm pretty sure. This game definitely inspired their sort of combat system. This game has been sort of criticized for being too, I guess, spammy, the game, because you just sort of, all you have to do is press one button and then counter with another button. And while that's true at the start of the game, I don't think it's button mashy, because towards the end of the game they start adding new enemy types. So you can't just punch them and block them. You have to actually stun them first, or you have to use a gadget to beat them, or you have to jump over them. Like, you have to start using skill towards the end. Like with the knife enemies, you can't just punch them, you need to actually stun them first, which can be pretty difficult if there's other enemies there as well. So it's pretty cool. I think that the actual combat itself is extremely good, especially for 2009. They definitely went on to sort of perfect it here. The combat is definitely the worst in this game, but that's sort of just because, it was the first game in the series, so you can't expect it to be the best. but I definitely think that they did a really good job for, you know, a 2009 game, especially when superhero games weren't particularly good, especially Batman games. But I think this game was definitely sort of like the first really, really good Batman game, and I think that the combat is one of those reasons why, because it was different at the time before like other people started using it, and it's just definitely one of the best things in this game. Alright, so now the last segment I'm going to be talking about is the actual extra modes, what you can do once you finish the game, because I know a lot of people like myself generally like to try the other modes of the game, not just play story. And this game, I'll be honest, doesn't have a ton to do, but it definitely has enough, I think. So what there is to do in this game, it depends what console you have, because I'm pretty sure certain things are exclusive to the PlayStation. But if you're on Xbox, obviously you can play the normal game, but I don't think you can actually, you know, do these extra stuff. The extra stuff I'm about to talk about here. So there's some extra content that you get, like they're kind of like the challenge mode, but they're exclusive to PlayStation, I think. I could be wrong on that, but there's like ones where you can fight in Crime Alley. There's some ones that just aren't in the base game that you can play, and I think they're pretty cool. You know, they're not too different from challenge mode, but while I'm on the topic of that, the actual challenge mode is pretty good. I would definitely recommend you guys try them out. How you unlock the challenge mode maps is generally just playing the normal game. You should, or it could be just be by finding Riddler trophies and stuff like that. Once you do that, you'll unlock a lot of them. You know, it depends how many trophies and things you get, because sometimes when you finish a game, you might not get a ton of challenge maps, but you can definitely go back and try and find more. But overall, the challenge mode maps are just consisting of predator maps and combat maps. So it's generally just when it's combat, it's 4 waves of enemies that you just take down, and they'll start adding different types, like knife ones, taser guys, sometimes like a titan monster in there. So it's pretty cool, and they're all unique and different, but a lot of them were actually in the main game. And then some of them is just the predator map, so just hanging on the gargoyles trying to take out armed people, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, but they're definitely fun to do once you finish the game, and it's just something to do to sort of keep the game alive. But in terms of the game, once you've finished it, it's actually there's not much to do in the actual story. You know, all you can do is maybe beat up that henchman that you forgot to kill, or sorry, lethally damage in the story. Like, you forgot to beat the shit out of them, so you're just gonna do it now, and you might find like some Riddler trophies or like scan some crud, but there's generally not a lot to do in the actual story mode. So if you played through Arkham Asylum, if you haven't played Arkham Asylum, you definitely should, because it's a really refreshing type of game. It did a lot for the superhero genre, and I think that you guys should definitely try it out. It's probably pretty cheap now, so I would definitely recommend it. The combat and the Predator is just like something that I don't think any other games have been able to match, aside from obviously the Arkham series itself. But that's about it for today's video, guys. Let me know what you think about Arkham Asylum. Have you guys played it? And if you haven't, definitely check it out. As I said, it's probably very cheap, as the game came out 12 years ago. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe for more of these videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.